Welcome to the BitGeek podcast. I'm your host, Ron Avis, and sitting on the couch to my left is the Prince of Pixels,
Nick Wright.
and today we're going to pay tribute to Saturday morning cartoons with our top 10 favorite cartoons. So, yeah, Nick, Saturday morning cartoons is a thing that is gone. It's extinct. They no longer do it.
Yeah.
But I remember it so fondly from, being a kid, getting up early as I could on Saturday mornings and just binging cartoons all day long until noon on all of the networks.
We had to take shifts, me and my brother and sister, because Dad, it was like we were wasting time. Like we should have something better to do, clean this or whatever, cut the grass, whatever.
So that was a waste of time.
Yeah, it was a complete waste of time. And so he'd get mad at us if we were just wasting time watching cartoons. But it was funny because I've heard this more from like my brother and sister. I guess I was too young to really remember this is what went down. But apparently my mom would allow us to like sneak down like in shifts. Nick, you go ahead, you watch cartoons for a half hour. Mark and Ruth, you go outside and be visible like you're doing something, and then okay, Nick, now you go out, and Ruth, you go downstairs and you watch. I'm told this is how it went down.
You don't remember that?
I don't really remember that.
So I guess you kind of had to like pick what your favorite show was, know when it was going to be on, and then kind of pre-plan.
I guess so, but I don't really remember that. What I do remember is trying to watch cartoons, but he would have loud footsteps, and so you could hear like when he would come in the house and boom, boom, boom. So he's coming.
So did you jump out a window or something?
Yeah,
grab a rake.
Yeah, you just act like you grab a broom or something, like I'm cleaning.
And he's like, "That's right."
Yeah, like I don't know, we'd hit like the TV, like turn it off or something.
Right, open up an encyclopedia real quick or something. I hear you.
That I do remember is being like spooked, like oh, he's coming, act like you're doing something.
Oh my god, that's terrible. I feel so bad because like I would be, getting up early. I had a TV in my room, so my mom didn't care as long as I wasn't making trouble. Watch cartoons all you want. Hoopkins.
That's how it was for us.
Watching cartoons with a gun to your head. Oh, that's hilarious. I mean, it's, not hilarious, I guess, but it's funny to think about, because, yeah, I could see how a parent might, we try to limit Logan a bit.
Yeah.
Try to read a little, whatever. But I don't give him too much slack. If there's a cartoon I know he wants to see, we'll watch it. It's fine. No big deal. And like I said, like Saturday morning cartoons it's such a, it's kids today have no idea what that is. Nowadays you got
if you got cartoons you want to watch, it's just you on your iPad and just
Yeah.
whatever you want. I mean, everything's a touch of a button away.
Yeah, cartoons have not gone away. Let's just say they're there's more cartoons than ever.
They're just not regularly scheduled on a Saturday, and there are cartoons on Saturdays. It's just on a cable channel.
Yeah, you got whole networks dedicated to cartoons, and I mean you got like channels like the Cartoon Network, Disney Channel, Disney Junior, Disney XD, Nickelodeon, several different Nickelodeon channels, Boomerang, and all kinds of other channels. So it's not like kids are depraved with cartoons, but there's something kind of neat about, I guess, only having access to the networks, and that was your time as a kid. Like, adults got TV, rain on the TV most of the time. They had the news or whatever channels or shows they watched.
Yeah.
We had cartoons. So Saturday morning was your time.
Saturday morning was the kids' time.
Yeah, and but I wanted to talk a little bit about Saturday morning cartoons and how they kind of really didn't catch on until around the 60s, when it was mostly like shows like Hanna-Barbera. Reruns. They would replay shows that were aired in primetime originally, like the Flintstones and the Jetsons, and some other stuff too. Or they were shows like Bugs Bunny that were originally released in theaters years before. That's what Saturday morning cartoons consisted of. And then you had the 70s, which a lot of the cartoons were based on like what popular TV shows were at the time. There would be, there was like a Dukes of Hazzard cartoon, or there was like I think a Happy Days cartoon.
Yeah.
And Hanna-Barbera was gigantic. There was like a whole Globetrotters cartoon. There was Scooby-Doo. And Hanna-Barbera in general was like the big thing. But the golden era of cartoons was for sure like the 80s and early 90s. That's when you really got into like made for Saturday morning cartoons. And you never knew what you were going to get. Sometimes you would get shows that were for a specific movie, and with Saturday morning cartoons, it was really, that show had a shelf life of maybe 1 year, possibly 2, and some went on much longer. But it was usually to sell something, and then it was gone.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until like I think 96 when government kind of stepped in, and they mandated that you had to have so many hours of educational programming. And I think at that point, another thing too is cartoons were expensive.
Yeah.
In the 60s and 70s, Hanna-Barbera had pioneered some techniques to where like they'd have like a still frame and then just move the mouth, and they could produce cartoons really cheaply.
Right.
And they were cool, but they were cheap, so they could sustain those. But in the 80s and 90s, they pour a lot more money into them. So I think they just like being forced to do educational programming and finding out that it's a lot cheaper to just throw on like Today Show or something in the morning. One by one, the network stopped showing cartoons. And it was 92 when NBC was the first of the networks that said, we're done with Saturday morning cartoons. So it was sad, like 92.
Oh, very sad.
But you still had Fox, and you had CBS, and Warner Brothers came on at one point.
Yeah, I don't mean to interrupt, but yeah, I remember hearing that Saturday morning cartoons might be going away, and it just, and I'm not even watching them at the time, but it hits you like,
yeah,
how
is that possible?
That's crazy.
Yeah, and I think there were a lot of factors. A lot of factors. There was the expense. There was, cable TV was getting bigger. You could have channels like Cartoon Network, so there was just more places for cartoons to live. Video is becoming much more prevalent. You could just buy the movies.
Yeah.
Or buy the cartoon shows.
Yeah, like you get those DVD box sets of like the entire series of whatever.
Yeah. So CBS, they a couple years later. I mean, it was a slow death. It wasn't like all at once. NBC was first. A couple years after that, CBS stopped in '97. ABC kept it going up until 2004, and Fox and WB carried the mantle up until like 2008 or so. So it was like 92 was the beginning, and then all the way up until like mid 2000s is when it died off completely. So that's like the little bit of a history lesson there. We're gonna talk about our top 10 favorite cartoons, and we each have a list. And I want to go ahead and also say that these are Saturday morning cartoons only. So there's going to be a lot of cartoons like DuckTales that won't be on the list because they were like weekday afternoon
Yeah,
shows.
not so much the you came home from school and watched these. And
I want to do another show for just strictly syndicated like weekday afternoon shows because I feel just as happy about those as I did Saturday morning. But I want to focus just on Saturday. This is like our tribute to Saturday morning cartoons. May they live on, with home video or like DVD, Blu-rays, and like you can find any episode on YouTube or something too. They're still out there. You can find any of these shows that we mentioned. You can find pretty easy.
Yeah.
So I think you started out.
Yeah. Why don't you lead?
I'll lead. By the way, happy anniversary, man! It's our 10th episode.
Oh wow, 10!
Yeah, can you believe it? We're up to number 10 already.
Hey, all right.
So yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm having a great time.
Yeah.
You keep coming up with these interesting topics. I hope to do many, many more.
It doesn't even seem like 10.
Nope, but this is 10. It's our number 10. So I'm going to start out with one from the 80s, and it was Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, I remember that.
Great show. It started out like, all the exposition was done in the intro. The kids are at the theme park, and they go on a roller coaster, and then they get like somehow like next thing you know they go through some kind of time warp, and whoop, they're in like this other universe,
the realm of Dungeons and Dragons.
and they meet up with this like little weird bald dude, the dungeon master, and he just gives them powers. He's like, you're the wizard, and you're the the acrobat, and like there was all kinds of them. And I really loved that show, man. It was great, and it kind of had elements of Gilligan's Island. It was like one of those things where like I always wanted them to get out of there. Like every episode was centered around them getting back home.
They never did they?
Nope, they never got back home. Again, as I mentioned before, these shows have a shelf life, usually of only a couple years, and I think it ran for a couple seasons, and they never got home. And there was a I think maybe in one of the DVD sets there was they did write a Getting Home episode, and fans came together and they got a couple of the voice actors from the show, the original show. They gathered around, they did a table reading of the script, and then some talented people on the internet came together. They took that voice reading and they kind of illustrated it. So it's really cool. I watched a bit of it.
I didn't know about any of that.
That's cool. It's cool. If you want to see him get home, you should check it out. But it's really well done. The art's really good. It's done like comic book style. There's no animation to it, but the voice acting is top notch because they had the original actors. And it was a cool show. And I was never a big fan of Dungeons and Dragons, but I like fantasy stuff. It's basically Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And Gilligan's Island was a classic premise of just all I want to do is get home. And I remember there being all the characters were really fun. You had like the kind of there was like the prissy guy kind of like he was always the one that got him in trouble. Like he thought he was better than everyone.
Like smug.
Listen, hotshot, next time be more careful who you're crashing into.
Come on, Eric. He did save your life.
What? Oh, he did, didn't he? Thanks.
Don't mention it.
Don't worry, I won't.
Yeah, he was real smug, and I think he was usually the one that messed things up.
And there's like the kid.
The kid had the unicorn.
Yeah.
Uni, or I think something like that's what they called him. I liked the wizard. I really liked him. Thought he was cool.
Was he with the glasses?
Yep, he had the glasses. Then there was the acrobat girl. And then there was the young girl, and then
there's
like
two girls.
Yeah, it was a pretty diverse cast, really, to be honest. And I don't know what else to say. Is I really enjoyed the show. Yeah. It was fun. When I think of Saturday morning cartoons, it's one of those that comes up for me in my mind. It pops up. I remember that intro so well, and I remember wanting him to get home so bad, and they never did.
I remember it just being kind of scary. Like you felt for him. That every time you're talking about the intro, and every time that intro comes up, and you're going into the roller coaster.
Oh, I hope they don't go into that portal this time. Yeah, but they do every time.
Don't do it.
Yeah, and I don't know. Oh, and the villain was scary too. Like he had like one horn.
Oh yeah.
And he was like, I don't know what he was. It was just like some ogre.
Yeah,
demon thing.
Who was that?
That was Venger, the force of evil. I am Dungeon Master, your guide in the realm of Dungeons and Dragons.
I just remember it being so powerful, and you just feeling for him. I mean, I guess it had to do with the age at the time.
Yeah.
But.
And I guess we identified most with the little kid or whatever, like with the uni. But they were like teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's who you would identify with. But I just remember too, like that dungeon master guy being really creepy. Mm-hmm. He was kind of like a Yoda, but like a troll. Thing. Yeah, that's my number one, Dungeons and Dragons. Which is funny because, like I say, I'm not a big fan of Dungeons and Dragons. I never played it, but I really like the cartoon.
Okay, so mine.
You're up.
Super Friends.
Here in this great hall of justice.
such a
Oh, yeah.
classic
Yeah.
early '80s cartoon.
Yeah.
And, you know, I had Batman, Superman.
Oh, what was
Wonder
the
Woman.
chief? The one who would enlarge.
Oh.
I love that guy. There was like,
oh yeah, what was his name?
oh no, I don't.
He was on Harvey Birdman, Attorney
Yeah.
at Law.
Oh yeah.
I spilled it on my lap.
Mm-hmm.
And wow, it was hot on my lap.
I'll bet.
Hotness. Crunch. Ouch.
Yeah, Oh, what are you trying to say?
I can no longer enlarge.
There were all kinds of like adult themed cartoons later on where he would like, I can't enlarge. Yeah. Yeah, that's the Harvey Birdman episode.
That was like the first one, I think.
I think so.
That was hilarious.
But yeah, he like you never hear about him
The
since
Wonder Twins.
the Wonder Twins. Yeah, there was like of course Batman, Wonder Woman. She had their little invisible jet.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they each had their own like vehicle, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't just Superman.
I mean, he could fly. Batman had his bat.
There was like a
wing or
torch,
whatever.
like it wasn't the Human Torch because that's Marvel, but there was
Cyborg was.
Cyborg
was
was
he
part of
there?
it.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, that it's a man that show is early '80s, wasn't it? We were
Yeah,
pretty little when that
yeah.
came out. That was the time of like the underoos
That was
and
it.
stuff.
It might have been late '70s, early '80s.
But was that where the underoos was that like around that time?
Oh yeah.
'Cause everybody had
definitely.
those.
Yeah.
The Superman underoos,
Yeah.
dude. Spider-Man underoos. Superheroes were big. I mean, we just had a whole episode on like superhero movies, but in cartoons they ruled.
You know, you're talking about the underoos because I had a Star Wars. It wasn't the superhero ones, but
Oh,
I
yeah,
had,
they-
like,
they weren't
the Darth
just-
Vader one. So it was like a Darth Vader T-shirt, and and it had the underwear because that's what underoos were.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I remember one time because I would wear the Darth Vader T-shirt just a T-shirt,
So it's
and-
pajamas
And,
basically.
yeah, and I remember like I'm at the bus stop or something, and then a girl at the bus stop's like, "Those are underoos."
Oh,
and
she
so
called
I'm like
you
so
out.
embarrassed now,
Oh, Did your like mom or dad like kind of like warn you against it, or did they just let you walk out the door wearing
I-
under or pajamas to school?
Well, I mean, it was just a T-shirt.
I know, it was. It wasn't like the felty material or like
No,
pajamas are.
It's like a normal T-shirt, that wore it like a T-shirt,
I mean, I would have tried to done the same thing. No, that's a funny story. Painful memory. Shamed you. Yeah, Super Friends were great. I liked them quite a bit, and that ran for a long time too, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of these Saturday morning cartoon shows kind of meld together a bit too, because it was the same superheroes, but they would get different show titles. Like I think there was like a Hulk Spider-Man cartoon at one point, like just the two of them.
Yeah, there was like Spider-Man and his Amazing Friends, and it would have like Iceman, and I mean,
Oh yeah, Iceman was in the Super Friends, wasn't he? Pretty sure.
well, Iceman's Marvel. And
No, right.
Don't mix Marvel and DC.
I know, man. I'm that guy. We started talking about Spider-Man, but it is funny how those superhero thing was so huge in cartoons in the 80s and 70s.
Yeah.
And then the movie came along, kind of handed the baton over. And cartoons never went away, but Super Friends, I'm trying to remember how the theme song went. Do you remember that?
All I really remember is like the announcer guy, like in the Hall of Justice.
Oh, yes.
I don't remember if there's like a theme song.
Oh,
or if
that
it just
classic announcer guy voice.
I think it just kind of started like that. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe so. I'll for sure. Every one of these are gonna have like intros cut into our podcast. So
Yeah,
we
the
can remember.
Wonder Twin powers activate.
Those are
Form
so
of
great.
a washcloth.
Washcloth. Form of tampon. Remember like Family Guy? When Peter had the Wonder Twins powers.
Yeah.
And now we play the waiting game. Oh yeah, that's a good pick, man. Super Friends, classic. Leave it to Nick, man. He always throws in the classics first.
All right, what do you got? Number 2.
Number 2 for me is one of my favorites. Ran for years and years and years. Is the Muppet Babies.
Oh man, Muppet Babies is like an absolute favorite. I mean, not only is it everybody loves the Muppets, but it's baby version of the Muppets, and they would always have those clips of movies in there too. That was always so great.
There are lots. I mean, I love movies, and they would always, when they would pretend.
Always have the pop culture stuff in there.
Yeah, it was kind of like Family Guy before Family Guy, wasn't it? They would have but they would use their imagination, and every show is like self-contained, and then Nanny would come in with her little stocking, you could never see her body, but she would come in and out of the show. But yeah, the baby
June Cleaver.
It was like began a trend of. I don't know if it began a trend. That may be not true, but I remember the '80s being huge as like babies and kids. Like they would take all the like really popular like. Flintstones had Flintstone kids.
Yeah.
There was a Scooby-Doo kids.
Yeah, Pup named Scooby-Doo.
Pup named Scooby-Doo, right? And Muppet Babies continued that trend. But that show ran for years and years.
Well, I want to say I think Muppet Babies was the original, though.
It might be.
And honestly, though, that spawned off of the Muppets Take Manhattan movie.
Oh, that's right, because there was a live-action version. Yeah.
Where they were babies, and I think that was so popular, they turned that into a cartoon.
You're absolutely right. I forgot about that.
And it spawned Flintstone Kids, a pup named Scooby-Doo. I don't remember which was first, whatever.
Yeah, we might as well.
But Muppet Babies, I think, originated all those.
Do you remember how awesome it was when they would have the Star Wars episode of Muppet Babies?
You can be Kermit Skyhopper, and I'll be Princess Piggy.
Oh, I know who I could play. I could play Wubaka the Cookie.
That's Chewbacca the Wookiee, Fozzie.
That's what I said. Kuchaka the Bookie.
I want to be Scooter D2.
And I'll be Skeeter 3PO.
Yeah, and I'll be Obi-Rolf Kenobi.
Wait a minute. Aren't we forgetting someone important?
Animal Vader!
Yeah, well, I was going to say the exact same thing, only for me would be like Ghostbusters, because they would be like, they'd like open the closet door, and they'd see like the Marshmallow Man walking by.
Yeah, they would always have that bit where they would open that closet door and there'd be a scene from the movie and they'd slam it.
But yeah, anytime they ever showed clips from Star Wars, Ghostbusters, I loved it.
Indiana Jones, I think they had. But also the characters were really cute too and memorable. And you had like Animal was the like littlest, I guess. Of all
he was the youngest.
He was all like like
every now and then Benson and Beaker would visit.
They would come over and visit, like have play dates.
Yeah.
It was just so great. I love that show, and it ran for so long. And it's hard to think of what was my favorite, but it's certainly for sure up there.
Yeah.
As one of my all-time favorite cartoons, not even just Saturday morning cartoons. I remember watching that show for years and years and thinking it was just awesome.
Muppet Babies was great.
Yep. So yeah, that was my number 2.
And the theme song was such a catchy
Muppet
theme song.
Babies.
When your room looks kind of weird and you wish that you weren't there.
Just close your eyes and make believe, and you can be anywhere.
Yeah, I remember that too. And they play in their little band.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm gonna throw theme songs in for every one of these. You'll have already heard it by now, I'm sure. And how did it end usually? I'm trying to remember. It seemed like it had like a kind of uniform ending.
I don't know, like they learned a lesson or something. I don't know.
I guess there was like a moral that they would learn at some point. But yeah, good stuff. Good cartoon. Good memories.
All right, so
that was my 2. It's on to your number 2.
All right, well, on that trend of catchy theme songs.
Dashing and daring, courageous and caring, faithful and friendly, with stories to share. All through the forest they sing out in chorus, marching along as their song fills the air. Gummy bears bouncing here and there and everywhere. High adventure that's beyond compare. They are the gummy bears.
Disney's The Adventures of the Gummy Bears.
Oh yeah,
Gummy
bears bouncing here and there and everywhere. Yeah, that's a special show because I think it kind of kicked off that Disney cartoon. Like, it was Disney's The Gummy Bears, like you say. So that we have a lot of like DuckTales shows like that, where they would, Disney would dip their toe into the cartoon, series or whatever.
It's funny because it's like, how do you get something like this from candy?
I know there was no like sales tie ever.
Yeah.
But when you think gummy bears, like you think of the candy.
You weren't even really selling gummy bears, but you had like this whole universe.
You'd think there'd be some kind of, especially in the 80s when they would always tie in together marketing of selling something. They never sold anything. The thing in gummy bears was the gummy juice.
Yeah.
They would make the gummy juice and then that would make them bounce.
What was that villain's name? The guy with the mustache, big nose and a mustache.
Oh yeah, I don't remember. But I remember his little sidekicks, his little cronies.
Little Toady.
Toady, yeah, I remember him. I don't know. I don't remember the villain guy, but I remember in the cartoon, like in being in the intro, he had like the night uniform on. Yeah. But Tubby. Oh wait a minute. I can't think of their names. Was Tubby one of them?
Tubby is a name, I think. Yeah.
I think he was the big one. Yeah. Then there was that grumpy one. What was his name?
I don't know. Grumpy.
It's kind of scruffy.
Grumpy bear, Tubby bear.
He was the muscle. He was kind of the street tough.
Yeah.
He was always
pouting.
Yeah, he was. And then there was the, I guess, mother figure, whatever.
Yeah, there was like
she had the real
granny.
Granny.
Cubby.
Cubby was the little one. There was the little the tomboy one. It was like the blonde.
Oh yeah, like the young girl one.
Yeah, it was like the young girl.
She was older than Cubby, but
older than Cubby, real adventurous.
Yeah,
she was like the one that wanted to be real. She's always getting into adventures. I don't know. Like I wish I could remember. I loved that show. It ran for several years.
I mean, honestly, it's like so memorable as far as like seeing them in the theme song. But I can't remember much more than that.
It's kind of like the Smurfs, I think, where that villain was trying to obtain the recipe for the gummy juice. I don't know why they would care about it, but
like Gargamel always wanted to turn the Smurfs into gold or something.
Yeah, wanted to use them.
He wanted the secrets of the gummy juice or something.
And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that wasn't it. But I mean, there had to be something.
It seems like he did. I don't know.
Yeah, I think he did. They would always drink that gummy juice and bounce on out of there. But yeah,
that sound effect is always boom,
boom. Yeah. That was a good show. You know what? I don't remember or recall like any like toys or anything of gummy bears.
I don't. Aside from like a Happy Meal, maybe I think they did Happy Meal line once. I don't think there was.
Man, they really missed out on that. And there had to have been some kind of gummy bear candy we just never was aware of. There had to be, right?
Like the Disney brand of it,
I guess. Disney gummies. Yeah, it's a good show. I liked it quite a bit. For the theme song, it gets a 10 for the theme song alone. Because we're mentioning these cartoons and they're all very memorable, like you say. We may not remember the nuances of the show very well.
Yeah.
Some of them we will.
It's been a while.
But when you say Gummy Bears, that theme song came right into my mind instantly. Like I was teleported back to the 80s and a little kid again. So yeah, that was a good one. That was your 2?
That's 2. So number 3 for you.
3 for me is Garfield and Friends.
Yeah.
Garfield and Friends.
Man, Garfield. What is more 80s than Garfield?
Nothing. Those books, and Garfield was blowing it up always in the 80s.
I hate Mondays.
Yeah, Mondays, and it's such a one-trick joke. Honestly, he's always mistreating Odie. John's kind of a moron. He's really only there to feed Garfield and to take his abuse. But they sure got a whole hell of a lot of comic strips out of that.
Yeah.
And the cartoon was really no different. Voiced by the same actor, I think, who was
Peter Venkman.
Peter Venkman, yep. Who kind of sounded, well, let's see. Peter Venkman, we got to do the connection. Peter Venkman was in Ghostbusters for real. And then he ended up doing the voice of Garfield in the Garfield movies.
Well, in the real Ghostbusters cartoon.
Well, yeah, the voice of Garfield in the Garfield and Friends did the voice of Peter Venkman.
But then Bill Murray voiced Garfield in the Garfield live action movie.
Exactly. There's a little crisscross. And I wonder if they had to have realized that when they were making those movies.
I know it's one of those trivia things I've seen on like IMDb or whatever that they mention it.
But then you also had, but Garfield and Friends was kind of like a variety show too, because they had the other cartoon,
U.S. Acres.
U.S. Acres, which was pretty good in its own right.
Had a little pig and
yeah, they had
the chicken.
Sheldon was the chicken. They would
I
never
don't remember their names.
I think you never did. He was always just like a shell with feet.
Oh
or
yeah,
legs
the
coming
egg.
out. Yeah, the egg.
Yeah, the egg with just the feet out. Yeah, that was Sheldon.
I think that was Sheldon. Yeah, the pig was Orson.
Oh yeah.
There was a rooster who was really funny. I can't remember the rooster's name.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like one half Garfield, one half U.S. Acres, and that show ran for years and years. It was one of those shows that never seemed to have a shelf life. That probably ran all throughout the 80s, I bet. It probably ran from the mid-80s to the mid-90s almost.
Yeah.
A good 7, 8, 9 year run. And it never got old for me. And it was that we're ready
to party!
We're ready to party, we're ready.
I hope you bring lots of spaghetti.
I'm scared. Come on in, come to the place where fun never ends. Come on in, it's time to party with Garfield and friends. Dancing,
Fiesta,
romancing,
siesta,
samba,
la bamba. Ay caramba!
Yeah. I remember that song.
Oh man, I totally forgot until just now,
Yep.
and it's coming back to me now.
It took a second to get the lyrics going there,
Yeah.
but that was Garfield and Friends.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it probably could have lasted only a season, and that would have been good enough. But speaking of Garfield, I was a big fan of Garfield, and I remember so well reading those comic books. And there was like the Halloween special, which I loved.
Mm-hmm.
There were several Garfield specials. So, you know, when I heard they were going to do he was going to get his own show, I was, of course, going to watch that. And for years, I watched that thing. Good stuff.
Yeah.
It was on CBS for a long time, and I think probably Muppet Babies and Garfield and Friends ran in together at one point, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, and they were like hour long, if I'm not mistaken, at one point. So I
don't remember.
Maybe. All right, so that's my number 3. Nick, what's your number 3?
Well, I'm gonna kind of cheat on number 3.
Yeah, we do that.
Yeah, because, and I hope this is a Saturday morning thing. I'm really not sure. In my mind, I'm remembering it this way though. But I'm just gonna lump all the like Hanna-Barbera like into one. Because there were just so many Hanna-Barbera cartoons, and I'm not even talking about Flintstones and Jetsons. You know?
Yeah.
I'm talking about like, you know, Jabberjaw and Speed Buggy,
Grape Ape.
and Grape Ape, and Hong Kong Phooey.
Hong Kong Phooey, number 1 super guy.
Oh yeah, well, Hong Kong Phooey, man. I loved Hong Kong Phooey. It was like probably my first crush was like the secretary on that show. What was her name? Rosemary, I think.
Yeah.
But, you know,
I remember you telling me about that, and I did like a Google image search, and I was like, damn, I bet she was. She was a curvaceous little thing.
Yeah, and that's, you know, before the April O'Neil and, you know, whatever else. You know,
put her in a yellow jumpsuit.
Janine from Ghostbusters.
Oh,
yeah. You know. But
I remember. Well, I can't say that I remember her, but I remember Hong Kong Phooey very well. That was a great one. Yeah, I want to say that they do qualify because there were, I think, some made for Saturday morning Hanna-Barbera cartoons, and Hong Kong Phooey might have been like one of those.
Yeah.
All throughout the 70s is where Hanna-Barbera
Quickie
dominated.
Koala.
Did you mention Speed Buggy?
Yeah, Speed Buggy.
Yeah, which is basically just the, you know, Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
I love Speed Buggy.
What was the one? It was like Wheelie and the Chopper Bunch.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Oh, yeah.
But Scooby-Doo, there were some made for Saturday Scooby-Doo shows, and Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo was one of them.
Yeah.
So love them or hate them, Scrappy-Doo, like I was never a huge fan of them. But
and really, Pac-Man was Hanna-Barbera too. I think.
Smurfs was Hanna-Barbera.
Smurfs and Snorks, which was Smurfs underwater.
Munchie Cheese.
Munchie Cheese, yeah, high up in the trees.
Live them Munchie Cheese. They love to laugh and play, have a happy, happy day.
Hanna-Barbera is just, I mean, as synonymous with animation as Disney.
Yeah.
Honestly. They're not really so much a thing anymore, I guess. But for years and years, 60s, 70s, and 80s, Hanna-Barbera was, and in the 90s too, I'm sure.
I mean, it's funny because they've got those main ones that everybody knows, like Yogi Bear and like I already said, Flintstones,
Huckleberry
and the Jetsons.
Hound.
But yeah, Snagglepuss.
Snagglepuss. I love Snagglepuss.
Yeah. Exit stage right.
Exit stage right. Well, thanks. Inconsiderate bounder indeed. Figaro, Figaro, Figaro. It figures.
Did you ever notice that they always had like cuffs and like little neckties and stuff at their, like, why? It was so like they're underdressed but they still have formal wear, kind of, sort of. I'm sure it has something to do with animation and costume animating. But yeah, they were there.
The Laugh Olympics.
Oh, the Laugh Olympics were completely cool. Saturday morning.
Yeah. Wait, so it's like all of them, like in a race together.
Mm-hmm. The Yogi Yahooies, the Scooby Doobies, and the really rottens. The players are on the field, in the stadium even. So let's get on with it. Laugh Olympics.
And I love that concept of getting, like a cannonball run for cartoons.
Yeah.
And it's really what it was.
That was fun.
Or the Amazing Race, but with cartoon characters.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd had your favorites, and you'd hope they'd win, and one of them would have their time to shine. But yeah, Hanna-Barbera is a great pick. I love Hanna-Barbera. Now, like you said, there's so many of them. I'm sure there's dozens.
Muttley, that dog was his laugh.
Yeah, Muttley. What was the guy's name?
Dick Dastardly.
Oh yes, good memory there. Yeah, Muttley was great. Snorks, remember that was a Hanna-Barbera thing too.
Oh yeah, I already mentioned the Smurfs under the water.
Oh okay, you mentioned Smurfs under the water. That's all it was. Like, hey, you know what's awesome? Smurfs. Okay, put them underwater, double the Smurfs. Cha-ching. Yeah, that's a good pick.
Oh man, there's no way I'll remember the name of these ones, but do you remember? It was basically like they were trying to reimagine the Jetsons and the Flintstones, because like the Flintstones, were like the cavemen. Jetsons were in the future,
prehistoric future.
Yeah, and they did another one that was like a family that was in like Roman times. Do you remember that?
When in Rome you do like the Romans do, you play like the Romans play together. You're all invited, so right this way you're gonna beat the Roman holiday.
I'll have to look that one up, because it wasn't as successful.
Apparently not.
But it was like it was like they tried to do that formula again.
Yeah, well they reached a little too far, I guess.
There was like chariots and stuff where like they're driving their cars around.
They really like talk about shared universes, man. Hanna-Barbera was like they were it. One of the main things I loved about Scooby-Doo is when they started doing those like Scooby-Doo mysteries and like movies, and they would have like special guest appearances like Phil Stiller, Don Knotts, or the Globetrotters.
Yeah.
And the Globetrotters actually had their own show during the Saturday mornings in the 70s, apparently. I don't remember it, but I was researching. But I always loved those episodes quite a bit. And the Globetrotters too, like I think they were on Gilligan's Island at one point. I don't know, they were the Globetrotters.
They were everywhere. Yeah,
they were pretty big. Yeah, I like Hanna-Barbera quite a bit.
I love those Scooby-Doo movies that they would have the guest stars.
Mm-hmm.
Sonny and Cher. And
yeah. And it was only like a season or so, but
Tim Conway.
Whoever was popular at the time.
Don Knotts.
I love the Don Knotts.
Don
Knotts. Yeah, wacko. Is Don Knotts still alive? If so, he's awfully quiet.
He'd be awful old. I don't know.
He'd be awfully old. I don't know. Like, I think about these things nowadays because we're getting to be that age where, like, a lot of our childhood, people that we're familiar with are kicking the bucket left and right. And we just lost Adam West, so
yeah,
Carrie Fisher and Adam West and anyone else that's been on Family Guy recently. But yeah, Hanna-Barbera, good stuff. I'll allow it. The cheat.
Oh, thank you.
Get them all in there. So that was your number 3, right?
Yes.
Number 4 for me is this cartoon wasn't necessarily good, but I liked it a lot. It was Captain in the Game Master.
Oh yeah, just because of
Nintendo.
It's video games. And
It was
all the
Nintendo,
references and everything.
You know, he gets sucked into the game world. It's kind of like Dungeons and Dragons. You know, like I remember he's like in his room and he's got his dog and he's got his little in jacket and he gets zapped in. He's got the zapper for a weapon. You get introduced to a lot of Nintendo characters. Is an odd eclectic mix.
I mean, it had like a little Game Boy that would talk and
Mega Man, who spoke really weird,
and he was green. He wasn't even blue.
Yeah,
the blue bomber, but he's green.
Kid Icarus.
Yeah,
who was
Simon Belmont.
I love Simon Belmont. He was not the Simon Belmont from the games at all. He was.
I was about to say, who was the girl? Well, the girl was just the princess.
Yeah, she was just the princess.
She wasn't really from a game. So
no,
much.
I don't think so. But yeah, Simon Belmont was probably my favorite character. And Mother Brain was the big baddie, and
King Hippo,
and
Eggplant guy from Kid Icarus.
Mm-hmm. But you know, it was just a thing to have Nintendo characters doing it, and they would meld a story together somehow.
Yeah.
And Captain N just was. I don't really think he was ever trying to get home. He was just trying to save the princess, I guess. But was she ever really in danger ever? She was with him.
Yeah, she was with him the whole time.
It's not like he was there to save her. I don't even really remember why he was there. Again, the nuances, I don't remember so much of the show, but I remember vividly, like, the characters.
Yes.
And, you know, they all had their role. Like, Simon Belmont was kind of that one, the smug character.
He was always looking in the mirror.
Oh, it was real vain, yeah.
All right, you deadbeat. You can squeeze me, you can choke me, you can shake me, but mess my hair? No way!
Did they have anything
Which
else?
is funny because I would never have gotten that from playing a Castlevania
Hell
game.
no. Hell no. And it was annoying, too, because Kid Icarus would always speak in those, like, kind of faux, like, you know, like, something to kiss. You know?
You can count on me to win the archery event, Princessicus. Why, you big apicus!
You know, like, whatever he said, he would just put a
yeah.
cuss at the end.
Yeah.
And I would never imagine Mega Man to sound like the way he did.
Yeah.
It was so...
Very strange.
Very strange. And, yeah, they did introduce the Game Boy. Like, man, how expletive is that to kids? Like, they're just going to throw around a hovering Game Boy? And he had, like, that blocky smile. You know? It just served no purpose, really. But Captain and the Game Master is just one of those shows when I knew it was coming on. I was glued to my TV because I just, you know, I love Nintendo so much.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they didn't expand the characters too much. I think they did add Game Boy in like the second season, and I think it lasted like 2 seasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, Captain and the Game Master. I just love the concept of if nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
It was just one of my favorite shows. It makes my top 5, even though I can't tell you a whole lot of what happened in the movie, in the show itself. I'm sure a lot of you people who remember it loved it too, but maybe you can't remember much about it. And I'm sure if I were to watch it nowadays, it would just be awful.
Oh, yeah.
It's like you can't watch this junk.
Yeah.
Especially with how the characters have, you know, Nintendo, since that point, fleshed out these characters so much. And a lot of them are irrelevant too. Like, there's no Game Boy anymore, and Mega Man he's not really much of a thing anymore.
Poor Mega Man.
Poor Mega Man. They just keep pumping out legacy collections and then don't bother to give him anything good or new to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my number 4. Nick, what's your number 4?
Well, kind of in the same vein, Saturday Supercade.
Oh, I'm glad you said that. Yeah, I remember that show quite a bit.
Yeah, so
quite
that,
well.
that kind of
not quite well. I remember who was in it.
Gave everybody like kind of like a little mini cartoon. You know, there was Donkey Kong Jr.
Yeah, they were like little vignettes or something.
Cuber.
They each had their own theme songs.
Yeah. I think in like the next season, I think Space Ace was one.
I remember Space Ace, and not even knowing what it was too.
Yeah.
Because I think it led into like Dragon's Lair.
Yeah, because Dragon's Lair had like its own, which actually. That I guess I'll have to do a shout out to Dragon's Lair because it's not on my list because it was a Saturday cartoon. But it was its own series, separate from Saturday.
It was
Supercade.
separate from exactly.
But
remember Donkey Kong and how weird Mario was at that time?
Yeah, well, because Mario wasn't a thing. I mean, he had his name now because of Donkey Kong Jr., But
Donkey Kong Jr. was one of the shows.
Donkey Kong Jr. was one.
Yeah.
But and I'm sure Mario Brothers, the game, maybe was out by this time. But Super Mario Brothers didn't even exist. So
Nope.
Mario wasn't even like the household name at all.
Saturday Supercade was early 80s, like 83, 82. Pac-Man was the big thing.
Yeah.
Which who else got his own show as well?
I don't even think like Mario Brothers was out. Because, remember in like the side art for Donkey Kong where, Mario, he was called Jumpman at the time, and he just kind of had like the little curly mustache.
Yeah.
Like he looked like kind of a villain from like like one of those old like black and white
twirling his mustache.
Yeah.
It's, that's probably why he had the mustache.
He kind of had that look, kind of, I think, and.
Well, he's got these long legs in the cartoon, and he's just is like Popeye-ish looking almost.
Yeah. Well, and I guess he worked for a circus or something. Like Donkey Kong escaped from a circus.
Oh, that was the point
crazy.
of the Donkey Kong cartoon,
yeah.
right?
He's trying to get Donkey Kong back for the circus or something. Crazy.
How far along they've come since then.
Like,
I remember like so well, like drawing that version of Q*bert.
Q*bert was absolutely my favorite.
Yeah.
Of that series.
Take a cue from the cube. Hey, it's Q*bert. Take a cue, me and you. And Q*bert, me and you. And Q*bert, me and you. And Q*bert. Whoa, Q*bert, favorite down in Q*bert. Whoa, Q*bert, you're my favorite. Whoa, Q*bert, you're my favorite.
They were, I guess they were kind of like in high school or something.
Yeah, he had kind of like
the leather jacket.
It was like 50s style.
Yeah.
They had like the little
right, because the Coily and his gang had like the leather jacket.
Yeah.
It was like Grease,
Yeah.
but with Q*bert.
Yeah.
Like, I got an idea for Q*bert. Let's take Grease and the game Q*bert, and there you go. But I remember like loving that style of Q*bert very much and drawing him a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of obsessed with that game at the time too, which was the point. I don't know if you mentioned Frogger was one of the games they even had.
Yeah, Frogger was one. I don't really remember much about it at all.
Me neither. Obviously, they didn't go into a whole lot of detail with the characters because since each one had their own little cartoon, and I think it might have been an hour long.
I don't remember.
They're very short cartoons. So, a Saturday Supercade was a cool one, and as a fan of video games, it was a really good time. Because, you did have the Pac-Man show, and you had Saturday Supercade. There was also, like, a game show, I remember, too. It was, like, in the earliest of 80s.
Yeah.
And it was, like, Starcade.
Starcade.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And there was like, a special Dragon's Lair episode.
You'll be the first to play Dragon's Lair, so we'll get ready to go on over there, and Kevin's going to tell us just a little bit about Dragon's Lair. Kev?
Jeff, quick man, I need some help. That dastardly dragon has Daphne. It cannot be. Send someone to stay by my side. Together, we will conquer him. Hurry, there is little time. The dragon awaits us.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Anytime Dragon's Lair would be on.
Oh, and I love Silver. Remember that show, Silver Spoons?
Yeah.
Because he had a Dragon's Lair machine.
Yeah.
Dragon's Lair has, like, such a mystique. I can't wait for us to do like a Let's Play of Dragon's Lair. We're gonna actually beat that sucker.
Yeah, we need to practice up on that.
Yeah, we gotta learn the patterns because I don't know, something about that game was just magical.
But that Dragon's Lair cartoon was cool because it was kind of a choose your own adventure thing. Like, if Dirk would have done this, then this would have been his fate. Stuff like that.
Oh, it tried really hard to kind of take the concept of the Dragon's Lair game and turn it into a show.
Yeah.
And that again also ran for a couple years. But I don't remember watching it much on Saturday mornings. Like, I remember kind of trying to catch it on, like, syndicated reruns.
Yeah.
Like on USA and channels like that. And I would always get excited when I'd see it come on. And it would always be at some odd hour of the day.
Yeah.
Real early in the morning or real late at night.
Yeah, I wonder if that might have been one that I caught every now and then, like on a Sunday, like after, like, Transformers or something. I don't know.
Yeah, you reminded me too that Transformers came out on Sundays, which is not a thing anymore. Like, you don't really have cartoons on. And again, back to the point of cable, like, you don't need it. Maybe Shows like Mask that I would have sworn were Saturday morning shows were not.
Yeah.
They just popped up different parts of the day.
Yeah, that was weekday, I think.
I can't stress that point enough. There are a lot of shows that aren't on this, that were surprisingly never aired on Saturdays. And there were shows that were on Saturdays and on weekdays, like Ninja Turtles was one of those shows. Like there would be a Saturday morning version of that came on, but it's not on the list because it was more or less a weekday show. But yeah, Saturday Supercade and that whole, it was pretty cool. I liked it. It was a good pick and one that I'd kind of forgotten about.
Yeah.
So, well done.
All right, what's your last one?
I struggled so much like trying to fill in this last one. Gummy Bears was one that I was going to do, but I'm glad you got it on the list because I thought it was deserving. But I'm going to go with Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Oh, yeah. Another classic theme song.
Yeah, watch out, because here we come.
It's been a while, but we're back with style, so get set to have some fun. We'll bring you action and satisfaction. We're the Chipmunks. CHIPMUNK. We're the Chipmunks. Guaranteed to brighten your day.
Yep. I remember.
Very 80s. It would have like the mohawks and everything.
Yeah, and that show ran for a long time. Like there was the early 80s, the 70s and early 80s, which was like the version that the hula hoop song, the Christmas.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then they kind of got reinvented a little bit and came back later in the 80s where they had like a more fluffy look to them. And that ran for a long time. And then they even had their own weekday show too. But it was strictly mostly Saturday morning, so that's why I say it qualifies. I'm letting it be on the list because it crossed over both, but it was mostly Saturday. But yeah, it was a great show, and I really loved that show too because it was the Chipmunks would play and sing popular songs of its day. So it was always kind of neat. Like I remember like Michael Jackson being a big thing at that time, and like Alvin would have, he was always the star. And then they had the Chipettes with Britney and all of the girl version of the Chipmunks. And it's kind of neat that the movies have kind of kept that name alive.
Yeah.
They're not bad little movies. In fact, they get a lot of talent to make those. Like the voices of the Chipmunks are usually pretty big name stars.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Alvin and the Chipmunks is one of those seminal cartoons, and I think I'll enjoy them, and like my parents and your parents probably have some memories of them because they go back pretty far.
Yeah.
There was a movie that came out at one point, I remember. That was pretty good.
Oh, an animated movie?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like a balloon race or something?
Yeah, they were going on like a balloon race around the world. And I remember really liking that a lot. But I don't know. Any more memories of Alvin and the Chipmunks for you?
Oh, and nothing really new to add. I mean, just that it absolutely is just one of those memories of Saturday morning cartoons, just like yours. I mean,
I noticed a lot of mine were longer running ones too. Like I had my one and dones, I guess, but like Chipmunks and Garfield and what was the other one? Oh, Muppet Babies were so 80s, all of them. But that's what I remember most about Saturday morning were those
eating your cereal.
Yeah, eating my cereal, which a lot of times featured those characters.
Yeah.
Man, you talk about 80s. It was another great era for cereals. There are a lot of great ones. You just don't see it too much anymore. And it's probably a good thing because, they exploited kids quite a bit. It's probably best that they don't do that anymore. But yeah, Alvin and the Chipmunks, my number 5. What are you going to bring it home with?
The Real Ghostbusters.
Oh, yeah, Real Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I can't not have some kind of a, favorite cartoon list from growing up and not have them. I remember the first time watching, and just you see in like you hear the music, the Ghostbusters theme song.
Yeah, and it's got the ghost walking down the sidewalk.
Along, yeah,
and he avoids the trash can.
You get so pumped. Yeah.
There's something weird, and it don't look good. Who you gonna come for? I ain't afraid of no ghosts. I ain't afraid of no ghosts. Who you gonna come for? Who you gonna call?
Yeah, that was great, and I love how that was one of those really quality shows. Like, you could tell they put a lot of time in the animation, and the voice work was top notch. They didn't get any of the actors from the movies to do it, but it didn't matter. You know,
and they all look completely different.
Yeah, Egon's hair.
Yeah,
I was gonna mention that weird, like, you know.
I remember like hearing some kind of interview with Dan Aykroyd, and he was like, "I'm the fat one."
Well, he was kind of skinny, I guess, and he got chubbier as he got older.
I mean, he wasn't.
But he was
fat,
dumpy in the cartoon for sure.
Yeah, he was definitely the dumpier one in the cartoon.
And then, you know, Venkman was pretty Bill Murray-esque.
Yeah.
I wish I could remember the actual actor's name. He's actually no longer with us. I know he passed away.
I gotta look it up. It's like one other. I can't remember if I'm. Oh no, it's Lorenzo.
Oh yeah, it is
Music?
Lorenzo. Ooh no, but you're right about the first name. It's Lorenzo for sure. Slimer became like a really big character too when with the cartoon. In the movies, if you remember, he really wasn't that huge of a deal.
And you know, when you're talking about top-notch animation, you know, when Slimer started becoming more and more, the animation was getting just like how they all do.
They get lazier.
I think we've talked about like Tiny Toons.
Yeah, they just get a little rounder and a little softer looking.
Yeah, Lorenzo Music. I was right.
Nice.
And Arsenio Hall, I forgot he was Winston.
Oh my God, was he really?
Yeah.
Oh, Frank Welker, of course, was in there doing something.
Oh, I didn't even realize Frank Welker was Ray.
Get out.
Yeah.
Frank Welker, we'd mentioned him before. He's a part of your childhood. He was Slimer too, though.
Maurice LaMarche. Yeah. He's been like so many. He's voice acted so much, just like Frank Welker, Dave Coulier. Oh, later on, Dave Coulier from Full House.
Dave Coulier was a voice? I didn't know that.
He was Peter Venkman later on.
Oh, okay.
After Lorenzo Music left.
Who was Janine?
I wonder, because there's a couple. I don't know which one is like, you know, the one that stands in my mind from like the early seasons, but Laura Summer and I don't even know how to pronounce that name, Kat.
Okay, so but Arsenio Hall is the big what? And Frank Welker.
I totally knew that. I just forgot.
Yeah, I totally forgot too. And this was before the Arsenio Hall show too. So I wonder how, like, I mean, nobody gets their big. Like, nobody's gonna cite the Ghostbusters as their huge break, but maybe it was for him. I don't know. Well, he was in the Coming to America by that time, I suppose. He was. Maybe not. Well, Ghostbusters ran late '80s, right? Mid to late '80s.
Well, the movie was '84, so it was like right after that.
Yeah. Arsenio Hall. There you go. A little bit of a trivia for you guys. But yeah, the cartoon was great. The toys were cool.
Oh yeah.
And the toys were modeled after the cartoon. If without the real Ghostbusters, we would have never had ecto coolers.
Oh, right.
The drink of champions for all kids.
Didn't they bring that back recently?
Yeah, they brought it back last summer for a limited time, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing like all over the internet those boxes.
Yeah.
And they had them in cans too. But everybody remembers the juice boxes. But I remember very well like having my whatever lunchbox was at the time. I had several of them.
Yeah.
Ecto coolers were in there always with your Lunchables. Gosh, what else can we say about the real Ghostbusters? There was the reason they called it the real Ghostbusters was there was the other cartoon that was may have been a Hanna-Barbera
Oh yeah, the
cartoon.
Filmation Ghostbusters.
Filmation,
yeah.
Filmation was pretty big too back in the day. He-Man was Filmation, I remember.
Well, and that was actually based off of a really old black and white. I guess it was a movie that was called The Ghostbusters or something like that, and it was.
Yeah, it had the big ape.
It had the guy, I forget his name, but one of the guys that was in F Troop was in that. And and there was an ape. Yeah. But yeah, so
I remember like catching wind of it and seeing it and going, "This ain't the Ghostbusters."
Yeah.
The hell's this?
Well, yeah, because I was looking through the Sears catalog. I think we talked at one time about going through the Sears catalog and how big of a deal that was.
If not, we should, because it was big.
Yeah, like every Christmas, you're going through the Sears catalog looking at the toys you want and whatever. And I remember I saw it, and it said Ghostbusters, and it showed the toys, and I got so excited, Ghostbuster toys. And I remember just kind of thinking like, it doesn't look like them, but
I guess it's Ghostbusters.
Yeah. And then the real Ghostbusters came out shortly thereafter, and I was like, "Oh no, that's the stuff!"
Yeah,
right there.
hell yeah, that's the deal. So it's really funny how that they had to do that, and I guess the Ghostbusters first was the old movie, so they who knows the behind the scenes like who had to pay for what, but then they had to add that little nugget in. Would you say that was your favorite Saturday morning cartoon, the real Ghostbusters?
I don't know. I mean, Muppet Babies is such a classic.
Yeah.
I might have to go with them.
Cool. I would have guessed Ghostbusters for sure with you, but yeah, Muppet Babies I think too were probably my favorite. I have so many good memories of watching Muppet Babies on Saturday mornings and just being such a good little show. And probably very watchable still, I would imagine.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to YouTube some of those old shows and see how good they are. Because Muppets are classic. And it was Jim Henson.
Mm-hmm.
He was very, into it. Can't argue with you there. I want to do some shout-outs for a couple of different things. A little bit longer shout-out. Pee-wee's Herman's Playhouse.
Oh, Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Yeah, Pee-wee's Playhouse was awesome. I loved it. It was a huge deal because it's not a cartoon, so it's got to be omitted. But
he had the King of Cartoons visit.
He did have the King of Cartoons, and there was some like Lawrence Fishburne was the King of Cartoons, I think.
Was he really?
I think so. Yeah. No. He was Cowboy Carl.
Oh, okay.
He was Cowboy Carl, and then like Zombie and all the Mecha Honey. But Pee-wee was huge at that time. That ran for a couple seasons. The Penny was the claymation Penny cartoon was kind of cool. Yeah. The fridge. They'd have the like little food. The food was having little adventures inside the fridge. Some other live action stuff. I'd like to give a shout out to Beakman's World.
Oh, yeah, Beakman's World.
I was always a big fan of that.
I actually see that on Sundays currently. It's on like MeTV, like on Sunday mornings, and
get out of here
watching Beakman's World. Yeah,
MeTV. I'll have to look for that because I remember the guy in the rat suit, and there was the girl, and the other science show that came out after that, Bill Nye.
Bill Nye, yeah, he's like
fine.
Him as much.
Yeah, he's fine and all.
Beakman better.
But also want to mention the granddaddy of all the science shows was Mr. Wizard.
Mr. Wizard, man.
Oh, Mr. Wizard's World. That was over on Nickelodeon, and it wasn't a Saturday morning thing, but I seem to remember seeing it on Saturdays at some point. So maybe it was a day that they would show them on Saturdays. But I love Mr. Wizard's World. Let's see what else. Interstitials. I gotta talk about interstitials, and those are like your. We didn't mention Fat Albert. We should give him a shout out.
Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids.
Yeah, and you had the picture page.
Picture pages, lots of fun with picture pages.
Yeah, with your crayons and your pencils. Did you not want that pen so bad?
I wanted the pen so bad, that marker. Yeah.
That was so cool, and you could buy them.
Yeah.
Never got one.
I never got him, but he made like the little sound when you draw with him.
But Schoolhouse Rock was the interstitials.
Yeah.
Like those were huge, so cool. I love Schoolhouse Rock. I remember those buffers, like the after these messages we'll be right back. Remember, that was so like Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah.
These are just silly little things that like just remind me of Saturday mornings. But yeah, we got to talk about, you know, the Cosby Show and Schoolhouse Rocks because they were Saturday mornings.
Yeah.
Any shout outs that you'd like to throw in?
Oh man, yeah, that Fat Albert. That's my big shout out, I think.
You know, it's so awful nowadays because you look back at Bill Cosby when he was so young, and he did so many awesome things for. I mean, civil rights he was huge in. And the Cosby Show was awesome. Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids was the best. I hate you know what's going on right now. It's just a terrible thing. But I cannot take away what the good that he did. I just can't. I know he's into some bad stuff right now, but those back in the day before all that stuff happened, good memories. You know, I loved Bill Cosby back then. I'd like to do good. Beetlejuice was a cartoon that I really liked.
Beetlejuice,
yeah, that ran for a couple years. Nothing really. I mean, it was like the cartoon, but not. The Tick was really fun.
Oh yeah.
We didn't really mention any of the Fox shows at all.
Yeah.
X-Men was cool.
Yeah.
That was a really fun cartoon.
Was that a Saturday thing?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
I know they played Batman, the animated series, a bit on Saturdays, but that was more.
Was a weekday.
That was for weekday for sure.
Yeah.
But you know, yeah, Tick was really interesting. I like the humor of the Tick.
Oh, Looney Tunes.
Oh shit, Looney Tunes was like.
We almost got away without mentioning Looney Tunes at all.
Yeah, Looney Tunes was.
That's
great.
like the biggest shout out.
Yeah, biggest shout out for Looney Tunes. But like it was kind of bittersweet because it kind of signaled the end of Saturday morning cartoons.
Yes.
It was the last thing that came on, and it lasted usually for about an hour. And you got all kinds of variations of whatever they called it. Like there was like Tweety Bird and Looney.
Yeah, there would be like the Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner hour.
I think that's the one I remember the most.
Yeah, they were different names, but it's always Looney Tunes.
But it was always those same Looney Tunes cartoons from way back in the 50s.
Yeah.
Mel Blanc, talk about guys you want to give a shout out to.
Mel Blanc.
The original, you know,
the
voice
OG
actor.
voice
yeah,
actor.
the OG voice actor did all those voices for all those Warner Brothers cartoons. Mel Blanc was great. And who was the guy that directed all the episodes? Like, I feel like you can't mention Mel Blanc without the other guy.
Well, there's so many. I mean, there's Friz Freleng.
Yes, Friz Freleng.
Tex Avery.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I get.
This right here is your cartoon historian right here. As being like such a fan of drawing and cartoons.
Oh shoot, there's a big one that I'm forgetting, but oh well.
Yeah, Disney's like big now, but it was Looney Tunes for a long time. Warner Brothers was huge.
Yeah.
So, you know, for many years, big shout out to Looney Tunes.
For a while, I could see like the art style, and I would know like, oh well, that's, you know, whoever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going blank right now, but oh well.
Yeah, well, that tends to happen when you're recording these things.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, and I think we got all the good shout outs in. I feel good about my list. We'll do another show just for the weekday afternoons, which is going to be even harder because there's so many good ones.
Yeah.
So many good ones. But for now, again, I wanted to mention that we have a couple of social media pages up for anything that we talk about, that we post and put in the video that you can't see because you're audio, you know, consumers.
Yeah.
That's the BitGeeks on Facebook, and also the BitGeeks on Instagram. So you know we're all over now: YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook and Instagram and everything. So we'll have to get a Snapchat going next, I guess, Nick. I'll put you in charge of Snapchat.
Right.
But until next time, this has been our 10th episode of the BitGeeks. Thanks for tuning in. I miss Saturday morning cartoons, dude.
Yeah.
I miss them a lot, but I'm really glad we got to do this episode.
Yeah, me too.
Take it easy.